Enos and Janice Peterson.
Good evening. Peter Greste, the Australian journalist jailed for more than a year in Egypt, is tonight back home with his family in Brisbane.
He spoke today of his relief at being free, but also of his determination to continue his work as an international correspondent. Well, Dateline's Meggie Palmer, who along with SBS correspondent Brett Mason has been in close contact with the Greste family throughout the ordeal. She joins us now live from Brisbane. Meggie, nothing could wipe that smile off Peter Greste's face today.
That's right, Janice. There were jubilant scenes here in Brisbane today as the Greste family welcomed Peter home. There was laughter, there was tears, and there was also a real sense of disbelief. Peter's mother, Lois, told me that she spent a little bit of last night getting up, going into his room and just checking that it was real, that he was actually home. But I can tell you it is very real. Peter Greste is back here in Brisbane. He's ecstatic, he's overwhelmed, and he says he feels very humbled. Uncaged, back home, free, finally. Peter Greste, jailed for more than a year in Egypt, was warmly welcomed back in his hometown of Brisbane. It was a nice change from Cairo, although still chaotic. Friends and family were there for the 1 a.m. arrival to see him home safe and sound. Eurus, how are you feeling having your son back on Australian soil?
A darn sight better than visiting him in jail.
What was it like to hug him for the first time?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Like the first time ever.
The worry of the past 400 days washed away with relief. Lois, how are you?
Oh, excited and so over the moon.
How was it to hug Peter for the first time?
Oh, Meggie, you know, very emotionally, totally at the top.
Reunion not just for Greste, but the entire family, elated to have their son, their brother, home.
Sorry.
Andrew, feeling well? Feeling good?
Awesome.
Several beers and not much sleep later, the seasoned journalist fronted up again this morning. You mentioned that when you were released it felt like a rebirth. I'm interested to know, when you walked through your family home last night, what was that feeling like?
Oh gosh, rebirth Mark II. I mean,
what makes it a home, of course, is the family, are the people there.
His younger brother Andrew is a farmer, but he hasn't been on the land much this year. Mike's taken time off from the police force too, running the global social media campaign that kept his brother's plight on the agenda. Will Peter be buying the beers tonight?
might be one or two.
You'll be buying them for the next year.
I really wish I hadn't asked that.
As for what's next...
You know, at the moment, my instinct... do you mind closing your ears for a moment?
Oh dear, here I know what's coming.
I don't want to give this up, my job up. I'm a correspondent, it's what I do.
Today's excitement tempered, though, by the continued imprisonment of his two Al Jazeera colleagues, Baha Mohammed and Mohammed Fahmy.
We just had to focus on the next on the next stage in the battle.
Despite the arrest, the caged treatment in court and the prison time, still, he's grateful.
I was lucky enough in many respects to actually be tested.
Okay guys, we've really got to go. I'm sorry. See you all tomorrow.
Peter Greste arrived at the press conference this morning wearing an akubra. Now that's the same hat he was wearing when he was arrested in Egypt. He says he'll now cherish that hat forever as a reminder of the ordeal that he went through and the strength of character it took to get through it. I sat down with Peter this afternoon and he explained to me how he managed to maintain that very positive demeanour despite his predicament, despite the squalor of the prison and despite the not knowing when he'd be released.
You can't go 400 days being depressed. I guess you can, but then you come out of that pretty damaged. I always recognised that our moods were cyclical, and whenever we had a down day, we knew that would pass, and you'd have to ride it out.
Now the celebrations will be continuing here in Brisbane tonight as family and friends join with Peter as he indulges in some of his favourites that weren't too readily available in Egypt, like beer and pork.
We look forward to it, Meggie, and of course we'll have highlights of Meggie's interview with Peter Greste a little later in the bulletin.
In a last-ditch plea for clemency, Bali 9 death row inmates Andrew Chan and Myron Sukumaran